There are a number of people, as everyone has said, who have all different sorts of experiences about this, but it's all personal and it's all emotional. And I have, from the day one when I first heard about this bill, was adamantly opposed. I watched my father die. He actually asked me, he wanted to die 2 years before he did, but he didn't. And because he didn't, my grandson got a chance to know him. And I watched my mom die, I watched my daughter die, and I know that for a fact that none of us are getting out of here alive. At some point or the other, we're all gonna go. But I don't believe that there should be a combination of 6 drugs offered to someone to end their life. I'm sorry for the suffering. And honestly, I know people sometimes suffer, and I wish that they didn't have to. And I wish there was other ways for them not to suffer, to get through their illness. Maybe the science is not done on that yet, but I cannot imagine a combination of 6 drugs roaming around in our society. When I was in high school, I never heard of fentanyl, ever. Now, people literally break into hospitals to steal fentanyl. I don't know where we're going as a country. I don't think we have a handle on how to deal with drugs, particularly as they relate to communities of color, and I cannot support this bill.
You know, I don't take this decision lightly today. Frequently, when I have bills like this, I always go to my best source, which is my mother. And she talked about how her sister-in-law suffered when she died. But then she also talked about the moral obligation as legislators that we have. I am voting no today because we do live in a place where our healthcare system is a business. It's not about a right, it's about if you have money. And access to care, including palliative care and hospice care, is deeply unequal. It is a system where people are routinely denied treatment because of their income or insurance or even their zip code. How can we in confidence say that we are supporting this? Poverty, discrimination, a lack of support, these are conditions not of free support, but of a system that is unequal, a societal system. And so for this reason, because of this broken healthcare system that we have, because of the systematic inequalities, because of our commitment to protect the most vulnerable, I must respectfully and firmly vote no.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for allowing me to explain my vote. The purpose of this bill would be to assist certain individuals in ending their life early in certain circumstances. Some people call this choice of passing peacefully, while others call it assisted suicide. While I do support the choice of being able to end one's own suffering early, while I do support the freedom to choose and freedom to decide in the pursuit of happiness, my concern and opposition of this bill comes from the great risk of targeting vulnerable communities of color, given the historical health disparities that they continue to face. I did request a study. I request a study as it relates to the misuse, true mental competency determination, and wrongful intent. But that request was dismissed. Death is something that I struggle with. Having to lose a baby, having to lose all my brothers, my father, and then my mother. And I still cry today for her. I was her caregiver, and I wanted her to live longer. But there was a point where she did express that she did not want to continue to be intubated if she would be intubated. But she told me that when she was mentally competent. And so my concern are for the communities, the vulnerable communities that are not informed, that are not given the chance to really see if they are legitimately mentally competent. Although this bill is rooted in empathy, it raises real concerns for communities that are already struggle to receive fair treatment. And for this reason, in good faith, I cannot support this legislation without worrying about how this will affect our most vulnerable populations.
Many of the individuals who I've heard about, they are in uninsured and underinsured circumstances, many of whom would not be able to afford the medication in order to see, even if they did hope for an opportunity here. And so this is about health care justice. And I couldn't understand, why is this coming through the Codes Committee? Because this isn't about stopping someone from committing suicide or giving someone the opportunity. This is about removing the punishment for assisting in someone's death. And that's one of the issues that I have a problem with, like, as a criminal justice reform advocate. We can't, on the one hand, look for harsher penalties and then remove penalties for the same act that you will give people 28 and 40 years in prison for, and that I have a problem with. And at the end of the day, we're still seeing people who are being prosecuted for administering this drug to individuals who do not require it. And they're being prosecuted in this day, in this time, in the Netherlands. I don't know about in Oregon, but I know if something is happening in Oregon, by the time it hits New York State, it is going to be vastly highlighted. And so I am concerned. What happens when a person says, I don't want to take this drug anymore, and people do it all the time? Is there a safe way to dispose it? Or will this be something that will wind up in a black market and on the streets of communities of color all across the state of New York? I think that there are opportunities for us to be able to make this circumstance better, and I vote in the negative.
I do not have the time that I thought I would have to speak on the bill in the way that I want to speak on the bill, but I am rising today not in opposition to choice. I rise in defense of equity, I rise in defense of dignity, and I rise in defense of my constituents from the 60th Assembly District, some of who are the most vulnerable New Yorkers whose voices, whose fears, whose lives are at times ignored in legislative debates such as this one. I want to begin by acknowledging that I am proudly pro-choice. I believe deeply in autonomy, in compassion, and in giving people the ability to make decisions about their own lives and bodies. But choice, real choice, must be meaningful. It must be grounded not in desperation, not in despair, not in the lack of options, but in hope and dignity and support. And I ask, how can we call this choice when so many of our communities like my own, have been denied the very things that would make a different choice possible? In New York today, in the very neighborhoods I represent, end-of-life care is not equally accessible. Palliative care is patchy. Hospice is too often unaffordable or culturally inaccessible. Pain management, mental health support, home care, these are luxuries, not guarantees. If you are Black, Hispanic, low income, the likelihood is higher that you will experience your last days not with comfort, but with suffering, fear, and isolation. It is these structural inequalities that concern me. Because when a system has failed to provide quality of life, it cannot suddenly be trusted to manage.
Thank you, Ms. Lucas. How do you vote?
I oppose this bill